Hey folks, Rob here with usual updates video for the end of November. I should sort of, little prefix of a warning that, as I sort of mentioned last month, this is really the not much on pickup, so I'll try and breeze through it fairly quickly, and there'll be a few other bits and pieces. So, first thing out of the way, of course, is the collection of videos. This month, the main one, the ones I did were the gameplay of Nebulous. I'm always a fan of that little jumper, although I'm freaking horrible at it. But hey, I got to give it another run to try and get better. Continental Circus, which is another solid arcade conversion. Interestingly enough, as I was going through and doing a little background note checking, and I didn't have this in the video, but it turns out that was actually released before Chase HQ. So that's very interesting. That's a solid conversion. A little blocky, but solid, fast, reasonably fast, playable. Good conversion on the 64. Yet, it was released before Chase HQ, which was an utter disaster. So, there you go. Doing another shmup in Synapse, which I really enjoy the 64 version of, although I did actually make it past the first stage. I was having another play a few days ago and actually got past that first stage. So, woohoo! And last but not least, the little homebrew release Paper Plane, which was off the most recent issue of Reset's cover disc. So, as usual, you'll have seen thumbnails in one of the corners. Click them, watch them if you haven't already seen them. And with that, really, pickups, there's really only one. As I said, my intent this month was to slow down, just to slow my burn rate down, just because of things with projects I'm waiting to be paid for, or waiting to be at a state that I can be paid for milestones and bigger projects that are a little more complicated in terms of being paid for them. But this came up, and I thought, why not? And that is a plus 4. There we go. This came up, and one of the things that's really convenient with it is normally the plus 4s have a custom, like a square power connector. When you have a look at here, it's this plug here. That has been switched over with one off a C64, and that was one of the reasons I hunted it down. I saw it came up, and I just put the bin in. Because it's been modified to take a 64 power adapter, it's a little more convenient to say, get a custom power adapter to power both. There's if you've been reading Reset, you'll see the articles there. Chap Ray Carsten, based in the US, who is basically putting together a custom power supply to power a C64 or a C128, and optionally a 1541-2, 1581 disk drive. And if you don't know, the 64's power supplies are actually, potentially, if the power supply fails, it could potentially destroy chips on the 64. So he's got also a little thing called a computer saver that can plug in between the power supply and the computer that will cut the power. And that is really convenient because this plus 4 has a C64 power connector. I can have the same setup on both. It also came with a data set. Unlike the C64 Edge connector, it uses a custom little DIN connector. And technically, you'd of course get adapters for those to convert it to the Edge connector, but not the other way around. And it also came with a couple of games. Sadly, these are all Commodore 16 games. If you know the thing, the C16 and the plus 4 are on the same line. It's just the plus 4 has more RAM and the terrible productivity software built in. So, first off, there's Gun Law, which, to put it nicely, is really rubbish. I gave it a quick play and it was just unplayable. I may have to throw a static. I'll throw a static shot up. Then there's Zadium, which wasn't too bad. I don't think it's the best. I don't think it's a bad game. It's an alright little one. It's a little budget game. It's written for 16K, so it feels compromised. Then there's a plus 4 educational cassette in Number Chaser, which I didn't end up playing. I mean, do I really want to play an educational game? It's not really intended, but it was in the lock the machine. And finally, the C16 version of Ace. I love the C64 version, and the plus 4 got a conversion of that. On the C16, I will try and bring these up to the eyesight. FaceTime camera. It plays quite a bit differently to the C64 plus 4 versions. Sadly, that was a load fail, so I didn't get the chance to actually check it out. I did copy a bunch of games to I ended up just, for the moment, I ended up just pulling out my 1581, copied a bunch of games to a disc on that, and had a quick play. But the big problem is the freaking joystick connectors. Because unlike the C64 and most other 8-bits, it doesn't use the normal customary Atari pinouts. Instead, it uses those really rubbish... where are they? Can I get them? There, I can get them. It uses these rubbish little DIN connectors, which is these two slots here. And as far as I know, the only joysticks that were actually made with those connectors in mind were Commodore's horrible black ones. I forgot the model number. And so as a result, I haven't exactly seen many of those online. So I've got a couple of adapter cables actually on the way. Actually, if I'm correct, they'll be sitting at the post office waiting for me, which I'll eventually head to this afternoon to pick up. So at this stage, there's that. There really isn't much more. I mean, I've seen other auctions come and go, and I've been trying to put low bids because I can't really justify splurging. And most of those have been missed, and probably rightfully so right now, which is a bit of a downer. But hey, that's usually what happens at the end of the year when you got to tighten expenditure a bit. So I guess updates for how December runs. So primarily, I grouped the videos into my plays into what's called a season, and that's been 50. So right now, Paper Plane was number 47. 48's been recorded for this week. 49 was originally going to be a bunch of stuff around the RGCD 16K compo, which has been postponed a week and has screwed up all my plans. And I have special plans for what number 50 is, although we'll see how that goes. So I really need to basically... So I've got a few more. I've got two more games I have to film. One I have to film probably tomorrow because next week is looking really messy. And then, well, number 2 for 50 is a lot more work. So I've got to try and start planning to work on that. And yeah, the RGCD compo. I was planning to do a roundup of that when the entries came out. Originally, the competition's deadline was today. So as I'm recording this, it would have the compo deadline would have just ended, and the games would have been coming out shortly. Unfortunately, there's been a delay and a week, which has resulted in a week extension. At the time of recording this, a few of the games have been released. Basically, because of that, it's like, yeah, you can release the games independently, and they've come up on CSDB. I might put a link. I'll put a link if you want to check them out. So, I mean, originally I was going to do a roundup of all the entries and then a few, detailed plays of my favourites. I may still do something like that, but it might be a few weeks later as a result. Just an interesting roundup, something to worth checking out. Other than that, I think, December, I pretty much will basically, I might break over Christmas. I've got a couple of weeks off work, and that's partly going to be setting up things for Season 3, along with the plans for, I guess, what I want to do in Season 3. That's other platforms, maybe expanding out, something else. I mean, one of the balancing acts is whether I'm going to take something further or not, based on the interest. We'll see. I mean, it was interesting looking at the statistics for the Paper Plane video, which I think I don't know if it's just because it was a fairly short video or it was really timely, but it actually seems to have been one of my most popular based on launch weeks. I don't even know if Darkness hit. I'd have to look at the stats for Darkness, which previously was the most popular one. I think this may be outpacing Darkness. I could be wrong though, but that's interesting. So I guess there's all of that. So keep watching. I do have more coming up. This week's is a good one. Number 50 will be good. I've just got to think of a number 49 to fill the gaps. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time.